Welcome to Video-7, which is the third of the four-part series on the immoral U.S. suffocation of Iran. If you have not seen 5 and 6, I suggest that you do that before looking at number 7. My name is Hayward Hawkins, and I'm the author of Golden Rule or Greedy Rule. Today is September 22nd, 2011. The subtitle of this video is Even More Reasons to Control Iran. The first additional reason is the geostrategy of Iran. In addition to its vast resources, Iran is prime real estate because of its size and location. Iran borders 7 countries. We looked at that already, especially Turkey, which is called the energy conduit to the West, which includes the European Union. Northern Iran has a 500-mile shoreline with the Caspian Sea. That gives Iran access to Russia and former USSR countries. Western Iran has a 1,000-mile shoreline with the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. That gives Iran access to the Arabian Sea, which goes into the Indian Ocean and connects to other oceans of the world. The second additional reason is that Qatar, Qatar and the U.S. produce LNG, liquefied natural gas. Qatar's on the Persian Gulf. It's a small country, but it has the third largest natural gas reserves. ExxonMobil and others have much interest and much investment in the Qatar operations in natural gas and oil. Qatar is the biggest exporter of the 15 exporter countries of liquefied natural gas. Asia and Europe are a big part of the Qatar market for LNG. Now the USA, since their hydrofracturing extraction process has gotten underway, has increased its natural gas reserves because of that process in the U.S. The gas companies there in the U.S. say that they now have more natural gas than the U.S. can ever use, so they need a foreign market, and they have chosen China, Europe, and Japan. Now I wonder why. Could it be because China, Europe, and Japan are paying triple the price for LNG than is being charged in the U.S.? I would think so. What more proof do we need regarding the greed of big oil? The whole world is suffering economically, except for big oil and Wall Street. And what does big oil choose to do? Take advantage of that triple price that others are charging. Is that what free trade and competitive pricing are? No. When each entity charges the same price, that is not being competitive. That is price fixing and monopolizing, all in the name of greed. But they call it capitalism at work. Liquefying of natural gas requires very expensive equipment, billions of dollars for the simplest of operation to be set up. The first part of the process is to clean the natural gas, and then the next part is to cool the natural gas to minus 162 degrees centigrade in order to liquefy the natural gas. In the liquid state, the gas occupies only 1/600th of what it did in the gaseous state, so that makes it economical to ship. But it must be put into cryogenic containers, and those can cost as much as $200 million to $300 million each. When the liquefied natural gas is put into those containers, that container is put onto a big truck and is delivered domestically, or is put onto a seagoing vessel and is shipped to another country. And when it gets to wherever it's going, domestically or foreign, it's reheated to or heated to put the liquid gas into the gaseous state, and then it goes into a natural gas pipeline just like other natural gas does. Bear with me now while I put up a map of the world for us to look at on this subject. I'm a one-person operation, as you might recall, so I certainly hope for your patience. Alright, here we are in the map of the world. We want to talk about the practicality of supplying liquefied natural gas from the U.S. to Europe and Asia. There are several different deposits throughout the U.S. Let's just talk about Louisiana, because I happen to know that there's a large natural gas deposits, and also there's an LNG operation under construction as we speak in Louisiana. So, for discussion purposes of supplying, Europe, China, and Japan, let's just talk about coming out of Louisiana, putting that liquefied natural gas onto a ship and going south of Florida, east, northeast through the Atlantic to Spain, which is the nearest European country. I'm just using that for convenience. That's about a 7,000-mile trip. Now, let's just say we're going to China from Louisiana, then south out of the Gulf of Mexico, down to the Panama Canal, and west across the Pacific, over to Japan, 12,000 miles later. Another 1,000 miles, which makes 13,000-mile trip to China. Now, why couldn't that be supplied from right here? Most of Europe and Asia could be supplied. Qatar's already supplying liquefied natural gas from there, and Iran has more natural gas reserves than Qatar. So if Iran were allowed to become unsuffocated by the U.S., it could help supply these needs. It would help the whole world. Even with liquefied natural gas, it's 4,000 miles from Iran to Spain, approximately, and 6,500 around this route to the nearest port in China, and 8,000 miles over to Japan, which is only 2/3 of the 12,000 distance from the U.S. Now let's take a look at another map back to the Mideast to talk about the practicality again. See, why mess with liquefied natural gas at all? Just use the pipelines we've been talking about, the IPI, the IPC, the Tabriz pipeline, and any other pipelines to Europe or Asia. It's much more practical to take the stifling, the suffocation off Iran and allow Iran to help serve the world its energy needs. If Iran were not being suffocated by the U.S., more natural gas could be supplied by pipeline to Europe and China, which should be much less expensive than LNG. The final video of this 4-part series, Video 8, is titled Summary of the Suffocation of Iran. See me in the brown coat in Video 8.